The Podium Pod is brought to you by the Pick and Roll. Head to pickandroll.com.au and subscribe for in-depth commentary and analysis on Aussie hoops. And don't miss the 2023 FIBA World Cup, with all 82 games brought to you live and exclusively across ESPN, ESPN2 and the ESPN app. Plus, all Boomers games, Team USA games and finals will be available on ESPN via KO freebies at no charge. Hello and welcome to the Podium Pod, the podcast covering the 2023 FIBA World Cup, brought to you by the Pick and Roll. We are in the last day of the 2023 FIBA World Cup. Only 2 games are remaining, and just as everyone predicted, Canada is facing the USA, except it's in the third place game. Both teams lost in the semis. They were both heavily favoured against Germany and Serbia, but Canada just got absolutely poleaxed by Serbia the entire game, barely looked like it. And Germany just continued to, bully the US inside. Jacob Dool is on hand with me today. And Jacob, you witnessed both semi-finals and you didn't quite predict the Germans, but you went about as close as you possibly could without saying the US were going to get rolled. So I'm going to almost give you that one.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed I didn't go all in on that and tip them to win, but no, they were fantastic. Really good showing against the US and Serbia as well against Canada. I think both teams, not the teams we expected to be playing for the World Championship, but both very deserving of being where they are. And now we've got 2 very exciting games to look forward to.
We'll start with that third place game and give the final the respect it deserves by putting it last. The USA and Canada are facing off for third place. A lot of us predicted that this would be the final. We didn't predict 2 upsets in the semis, but for them, they have to salvage something ahead of Paris. For Canada, I think it's an opportunity to make a statement against this US team and just say we've arrived and we're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Olympics next year. So I'm actually thinking that Canada probably has more of a reason to go hard in this game than the US. The US historically, we saw in the last World Cup, they, I think, finished 5th in the end. So they lost super early on and really struggled. I think it's been about 10 to 15 years since they've won a World Cup. And by the time Qatar rolls around, I think it'll be something like 17 years since they've won a World Cup. So for the States, they will be looking to Paris. Players will be looking to, stamp their passport to the Olympics. I think you could probably only pick Anthony Edwards right now from this squad in the Olympic team. There's been a lot of talk. Ben Mallis went through the other day just about how Steph Curry might play. LeBron James was considering playing. He tweeted out something a few days ago. Kevin Durant might play. There's a lot of money on the line for doing a European Olympics. And Jacob, it's going to be a really fascinating game to see who plays, firstly, and secondly, how Canada stack up against the US, because they will believe that they're capable of beating this US team.
Yeah, 100%, and I think they definitely are. And for Canada, this has still been a really strong, historically good tournament for them, even though with the star power they had, people expected more. So I think they'll be motivated to finish it off and grab that bronze medal. But at the same time, the US, as bad as it sounds, they will want to avoid further embarrassment. And not saying it should be embarrassing to finish 3rd or 4th at a World Cup, but I think by their standards and the expectations they put on themselves and the expectations that NBA fans put on them, it could possibly be viewed that way. So there's different motivations in this game. I think both teams won't be complacent. I think they'll come out firing, and I think it's going to be a really entertaining game because they're all players in these 2 teams that play that fast, offensive focus NBA style. So it should be a really good game to watch. We could see quite a high score, and I think with the players on either side, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Who are you tipping to win this third place game?
I think I'll take the US. I do think they have that extra depth of talent. Anthony Edwards, as you say, has been in really good form, and there's enough support around him, I think, to to make a really strong showing here. But with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on Canada, you wouldn't want to rule him out completely, would you? He had his quietest game of the tournament in the semi-final against Serbia, and I think he'll come out looking to make a statement and wrap up his tournament and possibly his MVP credentials with a win and a good individual game. But how about you? Who's your tip to win this one?
I refrained from tipping upsets in the previous episode, so I'm just going to go all in and tip Canada. I think in this one, I think they will see this as an opportunity, as I said, to really stamp their place as one of the best basketball nations in the world ahead of Paris. And I think this is a statement game that they can win, and uses a bit of a catapult to an Olympic medal finish, which I think they're increasingly in the box seat to be in the frame of. And that's really bad news for the Boomers, funnily enough, because you've got the two sides in the finals, the two sides in the third place game, and right now you couldn't see the Boomers beating any of them in Paris. They'll be on the outside looking in the medal rounds as it stands today. So a lot of work for Australia to do. Speaking of a lot of work, Germany and Serbia have a lot of work ahead of themselves to win the Naismith Trophy and the 2023 FIBA World Cup. Germany surprised the US 113-111. Franz Wagner was fantastic. Daniel Tice was great. Andreas Obst was particularly potent from outside, going 4 of 8. You said that Germany were going to be a chance, and now they've made the final, which is really impressive and speaks to the quality of their lineup and their consistency all tournament long. And at least now, as we said previous episode, the Boomers can say they lost to one of the teams that made the final.
Yeah, it always makes you feel better at the end of a tournament, doesn't it? When you went out to the champions, or in part due to the champions. But Germany, they were already playing such good basketball while Franz Wagner was out, and now that he's come back, they've looked on a whole nother level. And I think what was most impressive in their win against the US was Dennis Schroeder had a good game. Don't get me wrong; he had 17 points and 9 assists, but he's been their MVP candidate essentially through this tournament. He was only their fourth leading scorer as they knocked off the United States. As you mentioned, Wagner, Tyson, Obst were all scoring in the 20s, and there's just a lot more of an even spread than people would have expected, I think, coming into this tournament from Germany. And you look at them across the board, offensively, defensively, they've just got so many good contributors, and it all gels together really nicely. So they have been, I think, to most people, a bit of a surprise packet, but looking at it with the benefit of hindsight, it should be no surprise that they were able to cause an upset like they did against the US, and now put themselves in a position to play for the gold medal.
And their opponents are Serbia, who really touched up Canada. Canada never looked like it after about the first quarter. I want to shout out Nikola Milutinov, who had 16 points and 10 rebounds and really handled Dwight Powell and Kenny Olynyk with ease in that semi-final. Bogdan Bogdanovic has been fantastic. He has to be in the frame for MVP of this tournament. And they just made life extremely difficult for Canada. They were clinical. They remind me of those mid-2010 Spurs teams that competed with the Miami Heat. Everyone knows their role. They move the ball so well. They find the open man, and clinical is the best way that I can describe this team. And for that reason, I'm picking Serbia to win the World Cup final.
I don't mind that either. It's hard to argue with that because, as you say, they are just a well-oiled machine. Everything seems to be firing so perfectly. The ball always moves, and defensively they've really locked in. I think more than I expected them to. And it all starts with Bogdanovic on the offensive end, as you mentioned. He's been fantastic. He's my vote for MVP as it stands, and
Yep.
I think there'd be a lot of people who agree. But again, he hasn't been playing just a lone hand at this tournament. They had 5 players in double figures in the win over Canada, even though he led the way with 23 points. And it's just sort of that well-rounded kind of performance that typifies what they've done, where they haven't had their best player in Nikola Jokic at the tournament. So they've fired a real warning shot ahead of Paris, I think, assuming that Jokic is going to be back. But more than that, every one of these players has staked their claim to be in that Olympic tournament, but also just to earn the gold medal here. I think it's remarkable that they've made it this far, and I don't think I will tip them. I think I'll take Germany, but at the same time, I would not be surprised at all if they were to come away with gold.
Well, regardless, it will be a fantastic final day of the 2023 FIBA World Cup. We've thoroughly enjoyed bringing you this coverage via the Pick and Roll and the Podium Pod. So, Jacob, thank you for spending the last couple of weeks abroad, and enjoy the last couple of games of this tournament.
Thank you. Really, really looking forward to watching a couple of fantastic games, and I hope you and everyone else back in Australia enjoys it too.
That's been the Podium Pod. We'll see you again next time.